Okay guys, in this video I'm going to talk about 3 different firing actions with different types of guns. I'm going to talk about double action, single action, and striker fired. There's a lot of people out there that just don't fully understand what it means when somebody says a gun is double action or a gun is single action, and they just really don't grasp the concept of what this means. So I'm hoping to help a lot of you out with this explanation here. So the first one I want to start out with is the most common that people ask about, and that is a gun that is double action. So I'm going to start out with this revolver, and this is a Smith & Wesson 360 SC Airweight. It is a 357 Magnum that will also shoot 38 Special, 38 Special plus P, and 357 Magnum. This gun weighs just a little over 10 ounces, and it's so light it almost feels like a toy, actually. But this gun has seen a lot of carry on the ankle from me, and I've also, I have no idea how many rounds I have through this, but I also have a lot of rounds with both 38 Special and 357 Mag, including some 38 Special plus P. So we're going to talk about what is double action. What does that mean? What does double action even mean? Well, when you talk about double action, you're talking about what the trigger performs. It's called double action because when you shoot this gun double action, the trigger is performing 2 actions. It's cocking and releasing the hammer. Okay, so it's doing 2 things. I'm going to go ahead and pull the trigger here and show you. It's cocking the hammer back and then releasing it. So the trigger just performed 2 jobs, double action. If I were to manually pull the hammer back and then pull the trigger just performed a single action. It just dropped the hammer. So this would be single action. Okay, the hammer's back, and you would have this really, really light, I mean just barely put any pressure on this trigger. You can barely even feel it. There is no take up, there is no slack. When it's back like this, just a little bit of pressure and it goes. I can barely even feel a movement. So for self-defense, you guys can look into this if you want and look it up. I'm not going to get into the big details of it, but if you are carrying this for self-defense, I personally recommend not cocking the hammer if you're going to use this gun in self-defense. If you want to know why, look that up. Maybe that'll be a different video, but I'm not going to talk about that in this video. But when you pull the hammer back, it is now in single action mode because the trigger is only performing 1 job. Whereas if you fire it from this position, this is double action. The trigger is cocking and releasing the hammer. So that is what double action means. The trigger is doing 2 actions, cocking and releasing the hammer. It's doing both. Okay? That's double action and a variation of single action. Now, the reason I say a variation of single action, because if you go to the platform of a 1911, all guns have been cleared. This gun is a single action only, this 1911. You can only shoot this gun in single action. When this hammer's down, there is no possible way to fire this gun from this position. No matter what you do, this gun will never fire. This is a single action only gun. So if you ever hear the term, if you're newer to guns and you ever hear the term single action only, that means that your hammer has to be pulled back either by, well, with a 1911 you're going to have to chamber around, so you wouldn't be pulling it back manually. You'd be racking the slide to rack one into the chamber. Now your hammer is already back on a 1911, okay? And then once you fire the gun, single action mode, because the trigger is only performing 1 action with this hammer, right there. Now when you fire this at the range, when that hammer comes forward, and ignites the primer and the round goes off, the pressure from that round is going to rack the slide and chamber your next round in, and your hammer is once again going to be in the rearward position, ready to fire again. So the slide cocked the hammer for you. The trigger on this can never cock the hammer. If it could, this gun would be double action, single action, like this revolver. But this trigger can never cock the hammer. Only thing it does is one action. It releases the hammer, like that. And then when the round goes off, your slide would cock the hammer and bring it to the rear. Okay? Then once again, your trigger would perform one single action, dropping the hammer. Okay, so that is what single action, this is single action only. Now you'll find this also with some older revolvers or even some modern Rugers. They sell them in single action only, meaning that when you have a revolver, if this were a Ruger revolver, single action only, you could not fire the gun with the hammer in the forward position. If you have a single action only revolver, you have to manually cock the hammer before each shot. You would fire the shot, and then you would once again pull the hammer back, it would rotate the cylinder, and you would fire your next shot. That is the only way to shoot a single action only revolver. Now, there is also a term called double action only, and I don't have one of my double action semi-autos here with me, like an HK, to demonstrate this on. That gun is in storage where I keep it, but I'm going to show you with this. If we pretend that this revolver is a semi-auto like this Glock, but it has the hammer at the rear of the slide, a double action only semi-auto, when you hear that term, that means that every time you fire that semi-auto pistol, the hammer comes forward like this. It never stays back. The trigger only performs two actions, cocking and releasing the hammer. Cocking and releasing the hammer. Every time you fire that gun at the range and the slide comes back and chambers another round, the hammer will follow that slide forward. Double action only pistol. That's what it means when somebody says that they have a pistol for sale and it's double action only. Every single time you ever fire that gun, you have to go through the full range of the trigger, cocking and releasing the hammer. So I hope that explanation clears things up to some of you that are newer to guns and might not know what these terms mean. Okay, now the third one I have here is a striker-fired semi-auto pistol. There is no visible hammer on the rear of the pistol. In fact, there is no mechanism that you can see that this gun gets fired from. All of the firing components are internal in the frame and in the slide. The striker is in a channel inside of this slide, and there is a well, let me first explain this to you if you don't know a lot about guns. Instead of a firing pin, Glock calls it a striker. So every time I say striker, think of that as a firing pin. But I want to use the correct terms, okay? So in here is a striker, and it's in a channel, and there is a striker safety right about here in this area. Okay? There's a striker safety in there. And that means no matter how hard you hit this gun, no matter how hard you drop it, bang it, this gun will not go off unless the trigger is pulled. There's actually two internal safeties. There's another one back here. Okay, it's also a drop safety. And I have a video up explaining that, guys. But basically what happens is with a striker-fired pistol, you pull the trigger, you see nothing external at all move except for the trigger, and your gun would fire the round, re-rack a new round, and the trigger would be now in the forward position again, and the gun would be ready to fire. Now, some people say it's kind of a downfall to not have a hammer because there's no second strike capability, and let me explain to you what second strike capability is and why it's meaningless to me. I mean, I have several hammer-fired semi-autos, and I love them. But I'm just going to tell you why the theory of second strike capability is meaningless to me. What that means is if this gun chambers around and you pull the trigger and nothing happens, the round did not go off, the trigger remains rearward, and you can't pull it again to try to strike that primer a second time. So if you had a semi-auto with a hammer on the back that was a double action only or a double action single action pistol, the trigger would come forward again and you could let it restrike, let the firing pin or the striker restrike the primer again to see if that would go off. Now, that is of no use and nothing valid to me, because what happens, and most people that train you, if you ever go to training, will train you this way. If you fire the gun, if you pull the trigger on a semi-auto and that round doesn't go off, the first thing you want to do is come up and just get rid of it. I don't care if I'm shooting an HK that has second strike capability all day long. I am getting that round out of there. I'm not fooling around with whatever happened and, you know, trying to figure out why that round didn't go off. I'm just, if I pull the trigger and there's nothing, I'm re-racking it and going. That's all I'm doing. I'm never going to use second strike capability. You know, some people may have opinions that vary on second strike capability, but if that round fails me the first time, it's out of there. I'm not messing, I'm not fooling with it. Even if I'm target shooting, it's out of there. I'm not messing around with it. So there you go, guys. There's some talk explaining 3 different actions on guns. You have the double action, single action revolver, the single action only 1911 single action pistol, and a striker fired Glock 19. So I hope this video may have helped you in some ways and you know, answered some of your questions that you may have as far as guns and when people say double action only, and different terms like that. Alright guys, I'll be back real soon with some more gun stuff, and until next time, this is H4T, and I am out.